Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Co-Linked podcast. I am your host for today's episode, Notorious Cly, aka the Resident Guru, and today I am joined by the chaotic embodiment of the data storm, Millennium, aka the Co-Talker Guru. What's up, Mill?
What's up, Clyde?
How we doing today?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Not bad at all, especially because we're joined by our next guest. They love bears, they love razor blades, they shove them together and create chaos. What's up, Harmak, aka our Fluffle Guru?
Hi, Cly. Hi, Emil. Yeah, I'm very excited to be on. In terms of my day, it's a bit rushed, but I think we're getting it all together.
All right, there we go. I hate the rush days. Seem to have more of them than not as of lately. So I feel your pain, man. Feel your pain. I think now is a good time to go over our agenda for the episode. That way, you, the listener, know what to expect, and then we'll kick it off. So today, we're going to do a little introduction and introduce ourselves, since this is probably the first time any of you are actually listening to us. In addition to that, we're going to talk about what we've been up to, mostly in Yu-Gi-Oh! If you guys want to share a little bit of personal fun facts about yourself, I won't be upset. And then we have our subtopic of the day, which is our expectations for the Duel Links KC Cup and the expected fallout after said KC Cup. And then we'll move on to our main topic, Floodgates, fair or foul? So let's kick off the introductions with you, Mill.
Hi, I'm Millennium, also known as Mill, also known as the Guru Code Talker. I specialize in link summoning an egregious amount of times every turn to prevent my opponent from summoning any monsters. Using a card, my favorite card of all time, Nightmare Corruptor Ibli.
Oh, Jesus. I think we know how this is going to go for our main topic. Harmak, why don't you introduce yourself and save us from the chaos?
Being, loving Fluffle myself, I'm a huge Fusion fanatic. And I think I've always been inspired ever since I opened up, I think, one of my first higher rarity cards. It was a polymerization in the Blue Eyes pack. So that was always exciting. And eventually it led me down to this path. But I would say I only really started playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Again when Duel Links kind of started, like a year or so after. And then a few years after that, I've gone back into the mainline game.
Yeah, that sounds pretty similar to my journey. Took a long hiatus from Yu-Gi-Oh! By long hiatus, I mean like 15 years. Yes, I'm
Yeah.
old enough to take a 15-year break from Yu-Gi-Oh! Don't make fun of me. I'm not that old yet. And then Duel Links got me back into the game, and it's only gone downhill, maybe, since then. Duel Links, Master Duel, TCG, now I do it all. Love it, wouldn't trade it for the world.
I mean, the peak of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Is when you stop.
We all hope to reach that point one day.
Yeah, eventually.
That day will happen when my deck is pried from my cold, dead hands.
Well,
Yeah.
Speaking of things coming along, the Guild of Gurus. I think Clay, you've been here the longest, right?
Out of the three of us, yes.
Out of us, yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm the fifth guru canonically. I think now is probably a good time to
Canonically.
actually tell people what Guild of Gurus is,
That's
considering
fair.
this is like the fifth time we brought it up. Guild of Gurus is a Yu-Gi-Oh! Discord server. The gurus, the three of us, are people who love an archetype or a deck so much that they want to play it, share it, and teach it with everybody. I think it's a very important distinction to make right now that we, as gurus, do not claim to be the best players of our archetype. We just love it.
Not.
Yeah. We love it. And most importantly, we want to share that love with other people. So don't get it twisted. No one's claiming to be the best.
We're only trying to be positive, fun-loving, epic gamers.
That's
Yeah,
true.
and I think above many other things, we also really want to like help or at least allow people to understand kind of our archetypes and how they work.
Yeah. In addition to getting help with a guru's respective deck, Guild of Gurus also holds, I think, daily tournaments at this point for Duel Links, Master Duel. Pretty big Duel Links community. Master Duel community goes hand in hand with that because usually everybody plays two games together. And then ever since Master Duel's release, a lot of people have been getting back into the TCG. So our TCG community is growing pretty well too. I think we just hit 1,000 members, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we still gotta do something about that.
An amazing
Yeah,
moment.
yeah.
But yeah, like hopefully the plans in the pipeline.
Something big is on the horizon.
Yeah, we'd love to see all of you guys listening to it there, if you're not already. And stay tuned, because I'm sure we'll have an announcement in the server. I'll be sure to include a link to the Discord in the description of wherever this is posted. So let's kick it off with, what have you been up to in Yu-Gi-Oh? Harmak, what have you been up to, bud?
Yeah, well, I think a huge load of news for me. I've joined our remote duels matchmaking because I finally bought in paper. It's been a long time coming, and I eventually scrambled the money together. And in terms of budget, like for me, I'm quite the cheapskate, so it's under 200 quid for me. I managed to build a half decent Fluffle deck. I unfortunately don't think it's going to do too well against the current meta tier, though. But we'll see when I go to my first locals, which hopefully will be soon.
Yeah, not much does very well against tiers. Huh?
Couldn't have said it any better, Mill. Welcome to the Cardboard Addiction Club, Harmak. I'm glad you're back. Glad we got another one, boys. And what's 200 quid in US? I'm a dummy American.
Probably like the
I
same
don't know
now.
how to convert anything.
I think the quid and the dollar are borderline the same.
No, I think quid is a little bit more.
Yeah, a little bit. Hence the little bit.
No. My freedom dollars ain't worth the most. This ain't gonna fly, boys.
Brilliant. Yeah. Either way, I think if I'm correct, like 200 quid is probably pretty cheap for a half decent deck. Would you guys say? Or
yeah, 200 quid in US dollars is $244.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a pretty good deck. Usually I can build the core of any deck I want to play for anywhere between like $50 and $150.
Unless, of course, it's Kachira, in which case you're blowing an arm and a leg for that.
Yep, exactly. Unless you're gonna chase like the guaranteed to be tier 1 or tier 0 meta deck, usually about 50 to 150 bucks. And then the rest of that is just spent on staples and generic good stuff. So that's 244 is not bad.
I wasn't able to really make a build with, let's say, the bestials because they would have cost too much a piece, but I know they're really kind of required for these days.
I bought my bestials when they were under $10 each because I knew what was going to happen. I bought a playset of all of them. Let's not mess around. So
smart person thinking ahead.
Yep.
Yeah, investments right there.
So yeah, I've bought in cardboard. Of course, I quickly got Cog in Duel Links with Fluffle again. I haven't touched Master Duel, and I kind of wish I had before I learned the horrible news of Frog being banned. I'm so sad. That was a very big card in Fluffle, believe it or not. But yeah, rest in peace. I'll still play you in real life at least.
Yeah, that was Penguin and a Toad, right?
Yeah, Penguin, Dolphin, Bahamut, Toad. Yeah.
We should always assume Bahamut is involved in Toad shenanigans for non-Paleo Frog related decks. Yeah, that's sad. Toad being banned can only mean one thing: Sprite's incoming.
Yeah, we know what's coming next.
Yep, Sprite and tier.
Yeah, depending on how they introduce these decks, because like we already have Power of the Elements cards in Master Duel, like Mathmech Circular. I've been having a lot of fun with that. Depending on how they do this, like if they split tiers and sprites into different stat releases, the meta might be a little bit more bearable.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
I'm very curious to see if they're going to do with tier specifically what they did with the Adventure Engine when they knew that was coming in. We have this very well documented history that tier element is going to be a problem regardless of the format. OCG, TCG, don't expect Master Duel to be any different.
Yeah, it will continue to be a problem past the bans. Yeah, I think you're about to mention the OCG. They've banned almost the majority of it, but they're still finding a way.
Yeah, the OCG has gone through 2 kill lists for tiers, and it's still tier 1 over there.
Yeah, so we know it's a problem, and Konami has shown a willingness with Master Duel to hit problems as they're entering the game for the first time. Specifically, like I mentioned with the Adventure Engine, they know, okay, Adventure Engine is going to be splashed into everything. If we leave it unscathed, let's just hit it ahead of time and then hope that kind of fixes some of the problems with it. So I'm very curious to see if they're going to do that.
Which even then, it was less of a hit and more of a slap on the wrist because it was like semi-limiting the right. I think it was semi-limit right, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was both Water Enchantress and right that came in semi-limited.
Kind of begs the question, with how we know that they've... I know that the teams working on Duel Links and Master Duel are very different. But how they seem to also be a bit preemptive with Master Duel. How exactly do you reckon they would do that? Because I think one of the biggest hits to tier would be their main fusion monster. But what are they going to do? Just not release it?
Well, Kakalas, it came in the first wave of support in Power of the Elements, so I doubt they wouldn't release it. But they would most likely ban it in a subsequent list if it's too overpowered, which we know it's going to be.
Yeah.
And also, that would be the best hit. If you're not counting anything else, just a singular hit, Kakalas is the best hit because it makes the whole engine work, because it makes 2 tiers into Mill 8, which gets your entire combo running.
Very exciting.
Oh, and it also Rhodas or Foolish Burials on summon too. So
sorry to do a bit of a steering, but I believe we went over some of the things that I said I was doing. We didn't go over you at all, Mill or Yugioh.
now, Mill, take the wheel. Go for it, bud. What have you been up to?
I haven't been doing much Yu-Gi-Oh related lately. I've been feeding my crippling Destiny 2 addiction, but
Cool.
I've been having lots of fun with MathMex and Master Duel, one of my favorite decks of all time. I'm a big Cybers fan. And couldn't tell. And really, the Master Duel format right now, it's not as bad as it has been. So, yeah.
I don't know.
It's got its
man.
issues, but
you guys remember 10U Synchro?
I think I hated full power Drytron, Herald Turbo. Basically, I think I hated that
Herald
one the
Turbo
most.
was annoying too.
Especially because especially since the game was first released, everybody's like, "Oh, Master Duel's here, let's go!"
20 billion
Herald
negates.
Turbo.
They Shadow dropped it out of nowhere in February.
Yeah. And they picked the worst possible format to drop it in on. It's like, oh, this is build-a-board format where you either stop them or you die.
Yeah, it was Drytrons. There was Tri-Brigades going around.
Maybe they were actually being benevolent and trying to teach all the new happy, encouraged Yu-Gi-Oh players who have just come back in after 15 years and teach them a lesson that actually no, Yu-Gi-Oh is a harsh, cruel game and you better be wary for such formats, honestly.
There's a reason that Master Duel had the psychological horror tag on Steam for a while.
This is very true. Very, very true. Anything else cool you've been up to, Mill? Or just Destiny 2?
A lot of Destiny 2 for hours a day. I have zero life other than Destiny 2 and Yu-Gi-Oh! I hate my life and I love it so much.
You're here with us. We already knew you didn't have a life, bud.
So true.
I guess that leaves me. I've been up to a lot recently. Kicked off a YouTube channel. I've been cranking out content like nobody's business. I apparently have an addiction to the Rocket Engine. I think I've made 4 deck profile videos on all the cool stuff you can do with the Rocket Engine. I've got 2 more in me before I think I'm done. Yeah, lots of Rocket Engine and Duel Links, Master Duel, enjoying MathMech Circular and MathMech at Ignister because Ignister is the superior cyber strategy. Do not at me, Mill. We are not having this conversation right now.
I will have this conversation, I swear to goodness.
We'll do it off screen, and if one of us ends up with a black eye, we'll know why.
A duel to the death. Draw your saber, heathen.
Anyway, Clay, congrats on your channel. It's honestly looking good.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Put a lot of work into it.
It's clear, yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to see people actually enjoy the stuff that I'm making. There's nothing more gratifying than putting a lot of work into something and then putting yourself out there and then having people receive it warmly and say nice things to you. So makes your ego feel good. Fortunately, something that doesn't make my ego feel so good is the TCG format right now. And since the TCG format is not really something I'm enjoying, it's allowed me to really focus my energy on the Duel Links and hopefully Master Duel content. So I'm hoping to keep that coming. And then hopefully a banlist can get me back into the TCG, but hopefully it takes out Cash Terra as well, because even if they get rid of Tier, we've still got another problem that's not going to be fun to play against.
Yeah, Cash Terra absolutely dogs on Tier once they get their second support wave.
I feel
it's pretty great.
Quite, there's of course a lot of heating on this meta, and I'm sure I won't enjoy it once again, properly introduced. But maybe it's my fusion bias showing. But I kind of, if I could afford Tier, I might try it for a spin. I just kind of the idea of lots happening at once kind of appeals to me. But also, I do wonder if perhaps it's a meta people might look back on and be like, I guess some people can enjoy a tier 0 mirror. Shrug.
Tier limits are a very fun deck when they're not the only thing you're playing against. Like, for example, the following format just after the release of Power of the Elements, where the best decks were Mathmech, Exo Sister, Sprite, and Tier. That was a very fun and diverse format. Tier limits were being full gas with the Danger monsters. Some were splashing branded in there. There was also sprites doing their normal sprite things. Toad twice a turn. That was funny.
Fun.
Mathmex had a horrendous tier limit matchup if you hit the wrong cards in their hand, but had a great sprite matchup. And Exo Sisters also had a great tier matchup. It was really quite a fun format.
Yeah, it was pretty good. The one before Pote 2 was a really enjoyable format. There was a lot of decks in that. A lot of them were doing the same nonsense, which is Scythe lock you or find another way to floodgate you out of the format. But you kind of knew what to expect, and you knew to put attacks and counters in those post side. So I enjoy diverse formats, and I really do think tier is very fun and rewarding to play. I have played it online. Played it a lot in Nexus. I even have a branded tier elements build that I take out for a spin every now and then. So it is an incredibly fun engine to play. It's incredibly rewarding. But like Mill said, when it's the only thing that you can realistically play and expect to win, or the only thing you're going to be playing against, it loses a lot of its shine. It's kind of boring and annoying in a way.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah, I like formats that are diverse but don't have too many options. Like, for example, my favorite format of all time is Toss, also known as Eternal format, where the 4 best decks were Thunder Dragon, Orcust, Salamangreat, and Sky Striker. You can guess which one of those 4 I liked.
Oh, it's 100% Orcust.
I actually have been playing Orcust in Master Duel. It's very fun. Very fun deck.
Out of those 4, which one do you think I'd be for?
Thunder Dragons, Mr. Fusion Man.
Yeah, you got me. I honestly don't think it's because of the fusion, though. Do you just love the banish effects and all that, you know?
Yeah, it's a very fun strategy to play. Actually, all of those strategies were very fun to play.
Yeah, I suppose, you know, speaking of, like, older formats that we're happier with, and perhaps leaving behind the bit of a dystopia that we're in currently, yeah, one of our subjects is talking about the KC Cup, Duel Links stuff.
Absolutely.
Are you guys looking forward to it?
Not in the slightest.
Oh, Mill, you're breaking my heart, man.
Come on, Clyde.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I have a Rocket Resonator build that I'm hoping to test out. It's not going to be meta relevant or even probably close to meta contention, but it does do some really cool things. It's a fun deck to play, and Resonators are my favorite. So anytime I get to take it out and really test my metal, it's a good time. So I'm really looking forward to the KC Cup. What do you guys think Rockets are going to do? Do you think they'll have a presence in the KC Cup? Do you think that deck has some skin in the game?
I think it'll be popular. I don't think you know, and there'll definitely be people who get to max. Yeah, I don't think it's exactly going to be easy to do all that with. You know, of course, Konami love to do it either one way or another, unless if you're blooming salad or something. They introduce your archetype, and your archetype is given enough support to where you either got a really good turn 1, but your turn 2 is lacking, or a really good turn 2 and your turn 1 is lacking. And it's the latter, I think, with Rockets right now, is it?
Which one? Turn 2?
Yeah, and then as in they can do turn 2, but their turn, like, they don't have too much protection turn 1, bar an untargetable thing. Like,
yeah, it's pretty much Borreload Pass. There's lots of cool things
they've got
that
that
you can
fusion
do.
as well, don't they? But that can, like, pop. It's
yeah,
keeping you at
Borreload
home.
Furious Dragon.
Yeah.
It targets 2 cards on the field to pop them. One on yours and one on your opponent's.
Yeah, I don't know if that's enough these days, is it?
It has to be one monster you control and one card your opponent controls.
Alright, one monster.
Yeah, it's
so if you end
important
on
to
Furious
make.
only, yeah, you're in kind of trouble.
Yeah, Furious can target itself to pop, so you can always pop the Furious to trade for one of your opponent's card. But if you're investing 3 cards, the fusion means and methods to get Borreload Furious Dragon and then 2 materials, you're not really going to want to pop it to trade 1-for-1 with your opponent. That puts you
What you're going to
so
want to
neg.
pop with Furious Dragon is the rocket monsters themselves, which float in the end phase into another rocket monster from deck when destroyed.
Mm-hmm. Restocks you for the next turn too. Shameless plug here. I just did a Borderload Furious Fusion deck profile on my YouTube channel. Please go check it
Yeah.
out.
Exciting.
YouTube.com/NotoriousYGO.
I'll be there in the comment section.
Awesome.
I think so. Yeah, like honestly, of course, the Rockets they're not exactly done with their support. Everyone who's invested in them, don't feel bad if like you start playing the KC Cup, and it's harder than you might expect because we all know that there's so much support to where Rockets kind of evolve into a thing called Dragon Link. It's a spooky word to say.
Yeah, I was about to talk about that.
They are not there yet, and will Konami allow them to become that? Only time will tell. But they have been fairly careful when it comes to Duel Links. I say this as I'm looking at Mech Knight and Salamangreat and the top of the tier. I can imagine we'll see lots of them in the KC Cup. Weirdly enough, perhaps not so much like Mech Knights in that. Well, I suppose that they're fairly cheap, but it's just that ever since recently, there seems to be like a Goki craze mostly. Like a lot of Goki out on the ladder.
Goki is fairly easy to pilot and very easy to build, especially with the half gem off sale we just had.
Yeah.
You go through a couple runs of a mini box to get a couple copies of Super X and Twist Cobra, and then the rest is just mostly drop rewards and generic
let's
good
be
stuff
honest,
you can fill in the extra deck.
The power card that they got, and I don't mean their new support, the thing that's like just makes you go whoa is a Goki rematch, isn't it? Like there's a
It's
reason
a
why it's
double
one
monster
copy.
reborn,
Yeah, it's like oh my lord, and they can search it. It's a monster reborn that can be searched, and it's as you say, yep, double. Pretty crazy that. And Goki were one of those archetypes, as mentioned, that had like a good turn 2, and they were lacking that turn 1. And then, like, I think it's Master Ogre, right? He was
It
like,
is.
he was spoiled. However, I could have sworn lots of people were like, Master Ogre, it's a negate, don't look like that big deal. And I was thinking, nah, man, they've got what they need. They're going to kick ass now.
Yeah. The funny thing for me, being a Resonator Red Dragon Archfiend player, is people always bring up, can Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss come to Duel Links? And it's like, no, it's an quick effect Omni negate every turn.
It's not just
Master
an
Ogre,
Omni, it negates any face-up card on the field.
yeah. Master Ogre is essentially the same thing. Yes, you have to pair other monsters on the board to the arrows that Goki Master Ogre points to, but it does the same thing. You just send cards from your side of the field that it points to negate the effects of cards on your opponent's side of the field. It's basically Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss with a little more setup.
Yeah, slightly more fair for now. I've found when playing against Goki, I've had to make sure that I don't have like 2 targets out on the field that they would want to negate at the same time, or at least I will get one card and I'll activate its effects, and then I shall play like another card, and like for example, I guess Polymerization and Toy Vendor on the field. Like I wouldn't want them both negated without activating Toy Vendor first. It would be disastrous, and Goki can do that, especially ones that know what they're doing.
Are we expecting Goki to take a lot of top spots, or even the top spot of the KC Cup? Or
If
are
you're
we thinking
building into Mech Knights enough, then yeah, because Mech Knight is really the thing to beat in this format. If you have a good Salamangreat matchup with back row removal, such as MST or Cosmic Cyclone, you're really okay because they don't have their counter trap anymore because they're opting to play the busted monster Gazelle.
And they're substituting powerful traps like Needle Sealing.
Yeah, I feel like board presence is very important with salads too. Making the link monsters to put your salads in graveyard is really what makes them cracked, in addition to the consistency that they have.
The only decks we haven't really talked about are Galaxy and Infernoid. I guess if we're going by kind of popular decks. I'm personally sorry, Infernoid players. I'm personally glad there's not as many of you on the ladder, because damn is it hell on my deck. DD Crows everywhere. Ooh.
You're not going to want to duel me in the TCG. Inferno is one of my favorite decks of all time.
Oh, fun.
I miss the days when Grass for 20 milled 10 Infernoids.
We'll have a remote duel sometime soon then. Can't wait for that. Goodbye, Graveyard.
So we've talked a little bit about the decks we expect to see in the KC Cup and how they're going to fare. What do you think the fallout from the KC Cup is going to be? Usually we have a ban list that follows the KC Cup that usually addresses some of the more popular decks that we see during the event. Any predictions?
Murder list for Mech Knights.
I think I've been convinced because I was so wanting to happen. I think Galaxy, unfortunately, will go untouched again. I think Goki has only gotten powerful too recently to really be hit hard. If it gets hit at all, it'll be slight, in my opinion. Even that with how popular it is.
The only thing I could see happening with Goki is maybe you put like a limit 3 on Suprex. That way you lock them out of the very powerful limit 3 back row cards that they can take pretty good advantage of right now. And that doesn't hurt their consistency at all, but it lowers the ceiling just a little bit because they have to rely more on engine to win than engine plus overpowered techs.
Yeah, I'm thinking that following this KC Cup, the best decks of the format, like Mech Knights, I almost said Math Max, I'm playing Glitch Master. Mech Knights are gonna get hit into the ground. I'm thinking like a Morningstar ban, maybe even possibly.
I don't think a ban. That sounds a
No,
bit
probably
too
a
much.
limit one. Probably limit one on Morningstar, so that they can't play Morningstar with secrets like they did to Salads with limiting one their Trap and Gazelle.
I would almost be like, I don't know if I wanted them to get hit that hard. But then again, I think we all kind of thought the same with Salad. When we saw that happen, we thought, oh, wow, they've been destroyed. But no, they're pretty resilient. They're still alive. Mech Knight might be as well, honestly.
Yeah, Mech Knights are still a good deck. Like by design, they're a pretty good going second deck by the fact that it's just from your opponent having advantage in the form of columns. You ever been hit with blue for 3?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Happens to the best of us.
So I think they'll still be playable. They'll still be playable after the KC Cup. But if my predictions come true, they will no longer be the best deck. Or Rockets if they get better support. Because Rockets in the TCG have had a history of being really good dragon piles. And Rockets are the engine that makes it all work together.
Specifically Striker Dragon, but
Striker Dragon.
I don't think we're going to get Striker Dragon just because we have the skill that searches boot sector launch if you are playing a more pure version of a rocket deck. So I think that was kind of insurance to make sure they didn't need to bring Striker Dragon in. In addition to that, Romulus is also incredibly important for the strategy since they can search Dragon's Ravine, which is important for graveyard setup, for chaos shenanigans, and all kinds of other extenders. I took a look at the dragon support we had in Duel Links to see if I could make some form of Dragon Link with the rocket engine, and it's not quite there yet. We're missing just a few other setup pieces, and I think we could get something convincing.
I'd say wait for the next main box. That'll probably have some more rocket support because Varus / Revolver, whatever you want to call him, was a very big character in Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, the anime. Almost up there with Playmaker himself. So he's also one of the more popular characters.
Yeah, it's
Especially with his
guaranteed
deck.
support will come, I'm sure.
This is only the first wave in a mini box. The main box will definitely have more stuff. Who knows? We might get Borland.
You say that Goki might climb up and take a spot.
Yeah, in the power vacuum left with the death of Mech Knights.
Do we not think that Salad still has a chance of at least tying with it somewhere around there? Or do we actually think that Goki might be better than Salad and people are just not realizing yet?
I'd say Goki is right now being held back by the fact that, Mech Knights are just so dominant, and so they're thinking about Mech Knights matchup specifically.
Yeah.
And they're not really building into the trap deck that is Mech Knights are a trap deck. They floodgate you with secrets. But not thinking about the sheer interruption that Salamangreats has. And so that way they kind of
I kind of feel though that if it's then pitted Salad against Goki, at least when Salad get to go first, aren't they gonna just make Abyss Dweller and stop the Goki from searching any cards with the
I
grave effects?
forgot Abyss Dweller existed. Yeah.
Yeah, like I honestly think, seriously, I think Abyss Dweller is one of the strongest cards. Salad's gonna make it fairly easily. Have I kind of made you question your Goki choice now? Or
Well, yeah, it's
oh,
well,
I'm sorry.
yeah. We'll have to see. We'll have to
Yeah,
see.
yeah. Of course, we'll see. We'll see from all the results. Clyde, do you think we're wrong? Do you have an idea of what might take number one spot?
Honestly, I have no idea because you never know what else is going to come, and you never know what kind of hit they're going to throw on Mech Knights. They could obliterate the deck. I really don't know how you hit it in a way that's going to be convincing enough to get people to play something else without absolutely murdering the deck. I would like to see secrets go, to be honest with you, whether that be just a straight up ban or you throw a limit one on another key playmaker for them so they have to pick and choose, kind of like you guys mentioned they did with Salads. But I'm not familiar enough with the inner workings of a full Mech Knight strategy to actually figure that nonsense out. So hopefully Konami is. So you guys mentioned Abyss Dweller not too long ago, and I feel like that's a good point to move over to our main topic. Abyss Dweller is a floodgate. Most times when you associate the word floodgate with Yu-Gi-Oh, it comes in the form of back row. But unfortunately, sometimes we get floodgates on legs, and they have lingering effects that lock you out of a certain mechanic for the rest of the turn. So I think the question is, floodgates, fair or foul? Let's start with you, Harmak.
Okay, well, I think down within my soul, before I was coming, I think I was playing Duel Links at the time, and Duel Links, I think back then didn't have many floodgates, but I looked towards the TCG, I looked towards modern Yu-Gi-Oh, and I saw boards with so many negates, and I saw trap effects that just read win the game, and it felt like, do I want to do that? Do I want to dive into that deep end? It doesn't seem too appealing on the surface. And so eventually, of course, I want to play Fluffles, but I kind of hear at least their turn one variations are only so decent because essentially they were popping artifact scythes before DPE. And learning what artifact scythe was, it essentially is a floodgate. It stops the opponent from special summoning from the extra deck, which is pretty powerful, unless if you're Fluunderies or something. And I accepted that, and I kind of thought going into the TCG that you kind of like, at least the less powerful decks, which I do kind of admit Fluffle can be, sometimes they do need an extra something to kind of help them compete. And for that, it's Scythe. And at the beginning of Master Duel for Fluffle, it was a true king of all calamities. And I don't feel good when I play a Floodgate. I think they're bad things, but I have played them. I probably will play them every now and again, but ultimately, I don't think they're healthy for the game. They are kind of a crutch, I do feel, for the not so strong decks, and it's hard for me to admit that. But yeah, that's my truth. That's what I say. Um, I do sometimes think it's very funny and base though when someone gets locked. But it's like a, I'm it's a very cruel humor is what I'm feeling there. But I do know it's wrong deep down. Clay, since you asked me, I'll return the favor. What's your opinion on the floodgates? Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I'd like to compliment you for a very reasonable and fair take. And I think I'm going to echo that. I do feel like floodgates are often a crutch for lower tiered or under supported decks to try and swing up and compete against not even the metagame, just more modern and well realized strategies. But ultimately, I don't think they're good for the game either. I think a lot of Floodgate design concepts and even just straight up Floodgate cards are from an era in Yu-Gi-Oh! In which those things were okay. And unfortunately, or fortunately, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has progressed past that point to where locking down an entire mechanic almost to the point of no response is not good for the game. It's not healthy. It's not fun. And this is coming from a player whose favorite archetype has an in-house Floodgate in Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity. Some of that bad boy, you shut your opponent out of activating effects for the rest of the turn. Unfortunately, for Resonators, I suppose. Other strategies manage to do it better. But yeah, I'm not a fan of Floodgates. I have played, I guess, controlled decks that have capitalized on Floodgates, and I have played decks that feature or are built around a Floodgate monster, like Dynamorphia and Umi Control. But ultimately, I don't think the design of those cards are good, healthy, or fun for Yugioh.
I do feel that perhaps the archetype-specific ones perhaps feel a bit more fair than perhaps the more generic ones that can just be any. It can just be any trap or any field spell. Maybe.
This is very true. Very true. When you specifically look at like Dynamorphia, Rexstorm is the Floodgate monster. Locks your opponent out of using monster effects with attack points low. You guys know how Dynamorphia works. Dynamorphia specifically needs Rexstorm because they are a control deck. I personally believe, you guys can all disagree with this if you want, that Dynamorphia is just the evolutionary successor of Counter Fairies. When you look at a lot of what Dynamorphia does, they have their in-archetype counter traps that they use often to trade with their opponent on a 1-for-1 basis at key points in time during their opponent's turn.
I completely agree with you saying that Dynamorphia is the evolution of counter fairies, especially with, they have their own counter trap.
Exactly. It's a counter trap deck. All of their in-archetype traps, for the most part, are counter traps. And they're forced into this position where they're constantly trying to trade 1-for-1 with their opponent at key points in time. And if they are unable to do so or unable to find the right 1-for-1 trade-off, they just lose the game. So in order to throttle down their opponent and bring them to a level where trading 1-for-1 is more beneficial to the Dynamorphia player, they need something like Rexstorm to force their opponent into an avenue in which they can actually engage with them on favorable terms. Just due to the way modern Yu-Gi-Oh has grown and been designed, the game is so fast, the game is so quick that trading 1-for-1 oftentimes is a recipe for disaster. They are going to be able to generate more advantage than you are going to be able to take away from them, and you will lose.
I think
so true.
It's finally time. Mill, hit us, man. Like, what's your opinion
I've
on
been
Floodgates?
mainly silent this entire time.
Yeah, we've had
because I'm cooking up a storm in my mind right
dear.
now.
Yeah, we've had two reasonable, normal takes,
Yeah,
and
now
one
it's
of the
time for a
reasons why
cyber storm coming our way.
exactly.
So, if you guys don't know, I'm the Guru Code Talker. I'm the Code Talker Guru. We explained this at the beginning of the podcast, this whatever we want to call this. And what Code Talkers do, outside of linking so many times a turn, I can start with a full extra deck and end without any cards in the extra deck in one turn. It's fun. Is use a certain little level 2 dark monster with 0/0 stats called Nightmare Corruptor Ibli. I'm sure everybody who plays Duel Links is well aware of what that card does. But just in case you don't know, here's the rundown of what it does. First of all, when it's normal summoned, you can target a link monster in your graveyard and summon it to a zone that makes it so that it points to Ibli, but then its effects are negated and its attack becomes 0. Then the second effect is that whoever controls the monster cannot summon any monsters, cannot special summon any monsters without them being link monsters. So you can't special summon a fusion monster if you have Ibli on your field. And the third effect is that if it's sent to the graveyard, it summons itself to your opponent's field, making it so that they can no longer summon anything that isn't a link monster. And what Code Talkers do in the TCG, they use cards such as Transcode Talker, the Firewall Dragon. We are all very well aware of what Firewall Dragon does and did. Rest in peace, Free Errata. And their continuous spell, Signet Codec, which is one of the craziest cards I've ever read, and I love it so much. It allows me to search basically 6 monsters every turn. In order to extra link, a mechanic that is not in Duel Links, by the way, you have link monsters in every zone that's co-linked to each other. So a co-link is when both link monsters point to each other, all the way to the other extra monster zone, in which case whoever controls the extra link, or the U-link as it is known in the community, can summon a monster to the other extra monster zone, and in essence control 2 monsters in the extra monster zones. And if you do this right and not give your opponent any link monster, any link zones from zones that point upwards to your opponent's field, you can lock them out as link summoning or pendulum summoning from the extra deck with an extra link. If you get an extra link on the field and give your opponent Ibli makes it so that they cannot summon anything that isn't a link, and the extra link makes it so that they cannot link summon. That locks them out of any special summons. And using interruptions, such as Firewall Dragon, you can get rid of their bounces, and you can protect Ibli from battle by using Salamangrate's Sanctuary, where if your link monster battles, you can target one you control, pay 1,000 life points, and lower yours attack to 0 and gain life points equal to the original attack. And since Ibli has 0 attack, and the monster you just made have 0 attack is battling a 0 attack monster, 2 0 attack monsters do not destroy themselves at the end of battle, and so it keeps the lock in place. And so I'm saying all this because what I'm going to say is, you ready for the big hot take that Millennium's about to lay down on you?
Drum roll.
Floodgates are bad for the game, and I hate them.
What?
Well, no, that's
The
Clyde.
person,
I
the
think
man,
I
the
think we
myth,
got
the
the wrong
legend,
person.
whose entire personality is revolved around floodgating your opponents into oblivion, hates floodgates. And
Clyde,
here's why I
could
hate
have sworn
floodgates.
I could have sworn you got Mill because let's be honest, we thought you were going to be super pro for it. You know.
Mill,
Yeah,
your name in the
people are always
server.
surprised when I say this. But the reason I'm against floodgates is that there are certain floodgates that are completely fine because they require proper setup to get ready. For example, Nightmare Corruptor Ibli, you need to first off summon her, then link her, and then in order to really make the lock work, you have to go through an entire 90-step combo in order to get to the U-link. With floodgates such as the very notorious Skill Drain or Imperial Order, you just flip up a purple card and win the game. There's no skill behind those floodgates. That's why some floodgates are okay. Ibli is okay. Scythe is okay to a modicum of because Verte is gone, so now you have to actually work for it. Halk's gone too, so you can't Wonder Magician on your opponent's turn to pop it. Dimension Shifter I despise because it's Macrocosmos is a hand trap, and I hate it with a passion.
I have a controversial take on D-Shifter. I think D-Shifter is a well-designed card. I think the problem with D-Shifter is we do not have enough counterplay answers to it. Shifter, you have to send when you control no other cards in your graveyard, which means unlike most other hand traps or floodgates, you can't go balls to the walls combo, Omni negate board, turbo out, what is functionally a floodgate board against your opponent, and then drop Shifter on top of it. You have to specifically build your deck to accommodate Shifter, and then Shifter is pretty much all you're going to be able to get off first.
What I'm saying about floodgates is that the ones that require adequate setup, like I've said, Nightmare Corruptor Ibli, this is not biased at all. Don't worry about it. See, Shifter is just you activate it at the start of your opponent's turn and win the game. Similarly to my Master Duel players out there, Max C. If you do not have an answer for Max C, you lose the game, and that's why Shifter is just not a well-designed card.
So that's my biggest issue with Shifter is there's not enough counterplay with it. I think Shifter in a vacuum is a very well-designed card. Mill, I know you don't like floodgates that you activate, you win the game, and there's no setup for in quotations. But my counter argument to that is the setup for shifter happens in deck building. If I am playing a deck like Tri Brigade, I am not going to run Dimensional Shifter. If I go second, my opponent starts a turn, I use D Shifter. I am functionally skipping my turn as well as a Tri Brigade player. I need my Tri Brigades to hit the graveyard. I am not going to let them hit the graveyard if I activate Shifter. So the setup happens pregame, which is I guess a little bit more of a nuanced take for setup.
Yeah, I
But
kind of get that, but it's like
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
it is like one-sided setup though.
Yeah, the decks. Yeah, it's a very one-sided setup, and the decks that can use it, such as the very notorious Fluwanderese, they already have a lot of annoying cards, like Floodgates on legs. The fact that you can throw in Shifter as another Floodgate to deal with.
I also want to add, you did just say, Shift is a well-designed card in a vacuum, but if we take any Yu-Gi-Oh card in a vacuum, we'd have nothing to compare it to, and it probably would seem fairly reasonable. But I don't think we can take things in a vacuum and then be like, well-designed.
In a vacuum, Blessed by Dragon is the best card.
given a little bit of context, yes, I believe Shifter is a well-designed card because of the aforementioned deck building concessions you have to make in order to use it effectively. In addition to that, I think it's well-designed because it lingers for 2 turns.
Yeah, it's a reciprocal Floodgate.
Yep, so it's affecting both players, not equally because you are playing Shifter, so you have accommodated your deck to work under Shifter. In addition to that, you need to have no cards in your graveyard. This means if 6-card Shifter, yeah, I guess it works, but your opponent already got the chance to set up their board turn 1 interrupted. So top deck Shifter turn 2 is essentially going to do nothing for you unless the 5 cards in your hand were already sufficient enough to break your opponent's board. So that's why I think Shifter is well designed. I don't think we have enough counterplay to it at the moment for me to be a fan of Shifter, but I will argue in defense of Shifter. So circling back to the thing that originally got us off the rails, the difference between a Floodgate that requires a very specific combo and setup like Nightmare Corruptor Iblis and Flip Purple Card Win is functionally Flip Purple Card Win says I win the game now unless you have the very specific removal card. And then the setup combo for the Nightmare Corruptor Iblis says you need to stop me at some point, otherwise I will win. And the functional difference being you can actually interact with the Iblis setup is what you think makes setup floodgates fair, correct, Mel?
Correct. The fact that you can interrupt your opponent from getting the Floodgate ready in the form of hand traps, right? Or if they're going second, you just, I mean, why would they go for the Floodgate? But like, if they're trying to go for it, you can just, use your board. And compared that to, like how you said, if you flip trap card win, if you need to have the removal in order to get rid of the trap card, which is solved by the side deck, obviously. The side deck is the greatest thing to ever come to Yu-Gi-Oh! But in the same way, you will never guaranteed draw your removal or your hand traps. That's why floodgates themselves are inherently a major fucking L.
Yeah, and draw the out is not. It's a meme of an argument at this point, isn't it?
It is.
It's kind of interesting. Our sides are kind of the same, but we kind of also have our own little nuances in how we see it. I suppose. I think maybe more you two. I was a bit more plain, but I think what kind of really makes it interesting is how I honestly feel like there are some floodgates that are honestly a bit more grey, or at least some people might even say fair, but they don't exactly take too much setup. And I think one of them cards is the one that we kind of started this off with, and that's Abyss Dweller. Kind of is a floodgate, and he targets a specific thing. I don't think it's that hard to get out. It's actually kind of a hero right now, at least in the TCG. My deck probably wouldn't be able to play against Tier if we weren't able to set up a Dweller to try and stop some of their effects.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Abyss Dweller is kind of the unsung hero of Floodgates. In the case where, while yes, it is a floodgate and it's a lingering effect, the kind of thing that I'm against. The thing at Floodgates and the way it does it, instead of like, how Dimension Shifter banishes, it's just like doesn't activate in the grave, right? It doesn't remove your options for the next turn if you can still play through it, which is why that kind of floodgate, the one that doesn't directly impact your actual, not, I don't know what the word I'm trying to use is, but you guys see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. You're saying Dweller does require some deck building considerations because you need level 4s. Requires some setup because you have to get said level 4s on field to make it. And then, in addition to that, its scope of what it floodgates is narrow enough to the point where it doesn't feel oppressive unless you're a tier 1 player and for some reason you have the tier 1 deck and you're crying about it. That was one of the most annoying things about last format.
Exactly my point, yes. Compared to that kind of floodgate in which, like you pointed out, needs some setup, some deck building, and needs a good matchup, compared to something like Imperial Order, possibly the strongest floodgate of all time, negates all spell effects on the field. Floodgates like that, where you flip the purple card and an entire card type is no longer usable, are just terrible, terrible design in my opinion.
And it innately stops its own counterplay, which is back row removal, which most commonly is spells. So you chain your Cosmic to their set card because you have a hunch it might be something that's going to ruin your day. They chain Imperial Order. Sorry, spell effect doesn't go through, bud. And I think this is a good tie-in to some of the KC Cup talk that we had earlier, where floodgates like World Legacy Secrets are a problem for the game. And specifically in Duel Links, I know the Ibley lock is a problem. Mill, I know you like it because it requires a little bit of setup. But in Duel Links, it's probably a bit too much too soon.
Yeah, it's too early in the Link era to put out such complicated Link strategies where the only counterplay is Link itself. Especially when decks, such as, anything that has a lock on the extra deck, Ibley is just such a powerful card for the current power level of Duel Links that I do not understand why Konami decided it was a good idea.
Yeah, our options are a lot more limited, and that's like sometimes it's because we're also limited because of skills, and other times it's also because like we've only got 8 extra deck slots. We can't slap in Mermaid to every single deck, can we?
Exactly, yes.
So I think to answer the question, floodgates, fair or foul? The real answer is somewhere in the middle. Like most things in life, it requires a little bit of nuance and a little bit of context. And hopefully you guys got some of that today.
Clive becoming the philosopher.
Thank you. I think we're about ready to wrap this episode up. So thank you everybody for listening. We hope to see you next time. Mill, Harmak, it was an honor. I am beyond excited that you two were the first ones I got to do one of these with. And hopefully we get together and do one again.
Yeah, excellent.
Oh, yeah.
Likewise.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
yeah, and it
This
felt
was a really cool
so in
endeavor.
depth with both of you. It was really awesome.
Yeah, awesome.
Next
You guys
on the next episode, this is not an actual episode, by the way, just cut this out. On the next episode, waifus, yes or no?
This is going in and you can't help it. I'm doing the editing. All right, everybody, until next time, as I always say, be safe, have fun.